Hello, the story I want to tell you today takes place in California, USA. With its strong and diverse economy, California is known for its role as a center of technology, entertainment, and culture. The cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco in California are both vibrant and world-renowned urban centers. The main character of the story is named Jaycee Lee Dugard. She was born on May 3, 1980. Jaycee was a smart and beautiful little girl. She lived with her mother and stepfather. Her life was very happy. Her mother and stepfather loved her very much. Initially, her family lived in the city of Arcadia in Los Angeles County, but later her parents wanted to find a safer community for their children, so they moved to live in the town of South Lake Tahoe, about 700 kilometers away. On June 10, 1991, it was a Monday at the beginning of the week. That morning, Jaycee's mother, Terry Probin, who worked as a printer, had gone to work early. Jaycee, who was only 11 years old at the time, was wearing her favorite pink outfit and walking alone from home to the school bus stop. When she was halfway there, a gray car approached, stopped in front of her, and lowered the window. She thought the man in the car was just stopping to ask for directions, so she proactively walked straight over. But unexpectedly, the man sitting in the car used a stun gun to attack her, causing her to be stunned. Then a woman sitting in the car quickly got out, carried her into the car, and drove away. That area was not far from Jaycee's house. Coincidentally, at that time, Jaycee's stepfather, Carl Probin, happened to witness the scene of his daughter being pulled into the car right in front of his house. He hurriedly chased after the car, but it was too late. The father not only couldn't catch up, but he couldn't even see the license plate clearly. He only knew there were two people in the car, including a woman. Immediately afterwards, promptly called the police. The American police reacted quickly. Within just a few hours, local media outlets were continuously reporting on the incident and calling for public attention, hoping for cooperation from the entire population to rescue the girl as soon as possible. The police dispatched a large force to participate in the search. Helicopters and police dogs were also mobilized. In addition, there were many volunteers participating in the search team. But unfortunately, no clues were found. Based on descriptions from Jaycee's classmates and stepfather, police also reconstructed a portrait of the suspect. But ultimately, the distance they saw was too far to ensure the accuracy of the portrait. A few days later, tens of thousands of flyers and posters were sent to businesses across the United States. Because Jaycee's favorite color was pink, the town was covered with pink ribbons as a reminder of her disappearance and as a show of community support for Jaycee's family. Further expand her influence, her mother even established an organization called Jaycee's Hope to thank volunteers, counselors, and fundraising effort. Later, t-shirts, sports jackets, and missing person posters of Jaycee were also widely circulated. There was even a singer who specially composed a song for her. The incident quickly attracted attention across the United States, even appearing on the popular American TV show, America's Most Wanted. Unfortunately, despite everyone's best efforts, Jaycee still could not be found. In desperation, the police began to wonder if the perpetrator could be someone familiar. The first person they thought of was the stepfather, since he was a direct witness. If he was the mastermind, it would make sense that the police couldn't find her. Police then brought Jaycee's stepfather to the station for questioning. They also conducted a lie detector test on him, but nothing abnormal was found. So they removed him from the suspect. The second person the police looked at was Jaycee's biological father, Ken Slayton. They also suspected that perhaps Ken wanted his daughter to live with him, so he had used some coercive methods. But after investigation, they found that Ken didn't even know he had a daughter. It turned out that he and Jaycee's mother had once had a romantic relationship, but then they broke up and Jaycee's mother never revealed that she had a child. Therefore, Jaycee's biological father was also removed from the suspect list. Unable to find any suspects, the case stalled from there. As years passed, the incident was gradually forgotten. People speculated that Jaycee may have been left in some desolate place and was no longer alive. Despite what many people thought, Jaycee's mother still didn't give up. She always insisted that her daughter was still alive. Over 1 million missing person notices for Jaycee been distributed. Over time, people also used technology to simulate what she would look like as she grew up. But Jaycee seemed to have disappeared from the world without leaving any clues. So where did she really go? What terrible things did she have to go through? Next, we'll turn back time to that fateful day, June 10th, 1991. On June 10th, 1991, after being pulled into the car, Jaycee vaguely heard a conversation between a man and a woman. "Oh my God, we really caught it and escaped successfully. Unbelievable." When she fully regained consciousness, Jaycee was already about 180 kilometers away from her home. At that time, the world before her eyes had completely changed. She was being held in a dilapidated warehouse surrounded by a series of tattered tents covered with plastic sheets. Inside was full of old items and garbage. At first glance, it looked like an abandoned backyard that no one paid attention to. People who brought her there were a deranged couple. The husband was Philip Garrido, and the wife was Nancy Garrido. Philip had a criminal record. He was born in California in 1951. After finishing high school, at the age of 21, he had assaulted a 14-year-old girl and molested her. Although he was arrested, the girl's family, in order to protect their daughter's honor, did not allow her to testify in court. That helped Philip escape legal punishment. Afterwards, Philip went on to enter a marriage. During their time living together, he continuously attacked his wife, causing her to want a divorce. At that time, he wanted to force his wife to follow him. In the end, the wife had to resort to the law, and the two successfully divorced. In 1976, when Philip was 25 years old, he kidnapped a 25-year-old woman named Catherine Calloway. The girl was held in a warehouse for 5 days and sexually abused. Police officer on patrol later noticed a car parked at the door of the warehouse. Feeling it was strange, he went inside to check. That brought the incident to light. Faced with Catherine's testimony in court, Philip was powerless to defend himself. In the end, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Strangely, while he was imprisoned, Nancy frequently visited her uncle in prison and fell in love with Philip. From there, the two developed into a couple. On October 5th, 1981, Nancy and Philip were miraculously married in prison. On August 26, 1988, after 11 years in prison, Philip was paroled for good behavior and fitted with an electronic ankle bracelet. The local prosecutor's office would also regularly come to his home for inspections to prevent him from committing crimes again. However, he showed no remorse and instead wanted to commit more crimes. His wife, who seemed to have mental issues, not only did not stop him when she learned of her husband's thoughts, but agreed to participate. Therefore, the couple cooperated in driving around the city. By chance, they saw Jaycee walking alone on the road. So they did not hesitate to act on Jaycee and finally kept her in a soundproof warehouse in the backyard. This was a recording studio built by Philip himself. Therefore, even if Jaycee screamed, no one would hear. Next, he handcuffed her and forced her not to wear anything. He said that she was forbidden to scream and leave the warehouse. Her parents didn't need her. She was a homeless person. Outside, there were large hunting dogs guarding the house. If she dared to escape, the hunting dogs would tear her to pieces. In the first week, Jaycee was still handcuffed, and the only person who had contact with her was Philip. He occasionally brought her some fast food and chatted with her. He gave her a bucket for her to use for going to the bathroom. He continuously slept with her at least once a week for the next 3 years. Philip also did not allow her to read or write. He even forbade her from mentioning her own name, and they gave her a fake name, Alyssa. Next, Philip also brought her a TV, but only allowed her to watch shopping channels. She had no idea that people were looking for her. On April 3rd, 1994, Philip suddenly brought her some cooked food. This was the first time she had eaten such things besides the cheap food since being imprisoned. He changed the way he treated her because at that time she was pregnant with his child. At that time, Jaycee was only 13 years old. Philip would not take her to the hospital. He only searched for information and taught her the necessary skills for childbirth. On August 18, 1994, Jaycee gave birth to her first daughter. She also smiled for the first time in a long time because she finally had a companion. She took very good care of her daughter through what she had learned on TV. In 1997, Jaycee gave birth to her second daughter. To have more space for the two children to live, Philip built an additional large tent in the backyard. Jaycee was allowed to leave the room and bring the babies into the tent. Although the two children were born to Jaycee herself, to please his wife, Philip forced the two children to call Nancy Mom, while Jaycee took on the role of the oldest sister of the two children. He felt that the only way for the children to grow up was to deceive the investigation of the outside world. In reality, outsiders all thought that the two children were Nancy's children and had no suspicions. By 2009, 18 years had passed since Jaycee was abducted. Her mother still had not given up, and finally a new turning point appeared. On August 24, 2009, Philip went to the FBI office in San Francisco and left a paper outlining his views on religion and gender, mainly to describe that he had realized his past mistakes and was no longer committing crimes. He could help others do the same. Moreover, he even brought his two daughters to the University of California campus to apply for teaching religion. The above process happened to involve the university's police department. At that time, he met the department head, Lisa Campbell. During the meeting, Philip made her think he was eccentric. At the same time, she also noticed that the two girls Philip brought behaved very strangely. They both had a kind of fear towards Philip and always looked gloomy. They were very cautious and extremely submissive to Philip. At that time, Lisa felt that something was wrong. To be careful, she asked Philip to sign paperwork and come back the next day. Then she secretly asked a detective to investigate him thoroughly. After investigation, she discovered that Philip was a man with many criminal records. The next afternoon, Philip returned for the 2 p.m. appointment with his two daughters. They noticed that the girls looked very pale, as if they had not been exposed to sunlight for a long time. Right after that, Lisa also contacted Philip's parole officer to find out more information. When the parole officer heard Philip had brought 2 children with him, they also broke out in a cold sweat, because with his past crimes, he was prohibited from living with minors. Therefore, investigators went to Philip's house to investigate his relationship with the 2 girls. However, they only found his wife Nancy and his elderly mother at home. The 2 girls were not found. Philip later explained that the 2 girls were his relatives and that their parents had agreed to let him bring them to the university. The investigators then asked him to bring the children and their parents to the parole office to explain the situation the next day. The next day, August 26, 2009, Philip and his 2 daughters came to the parole office. There, Philip explained that the 2 girls were the children of his relative Alyssa. Jaycee also admitted that she was Alyssa and the 2 girls were her daughters. She also said that Philip was a good man, he treated her and the children very well. Her 2 daughters also chimed in, saying that Philip was very good to them. Looking at the context, it seemed that Philip was a good man. That was because Philip had prepared for those situations the day before. But when investigators tried to verify Jaycee's identity, problems arose. To find out the truth, the investigators separated the 3 of them to gather information. When forced to provide details that could confirm her identity, Jaycee became extremely defensive and agitated. The investigators then invited more police to present the situation. Finally, in front of the police, Jaycee mustered up the courage to talk about her real name. She revealed that her name was Jaycee. 18 years ago, she had been captured by the Garrido couple and was controlled to live in their backyard without being able to escape. The police were very shocked when they heard the story and immediately arrested the Garrido couple. When Jaycee's mother received a call from the police, her emotions erupted. She couldn't believe that she could see her daughter again after 18 years of searching. The 2 later reunited. Jaycee couldn't stop hugging her mother and crying. Fortunately, at that time, Jaycee and her daughters were all in good health. Her stepfather was very happy to see her again. Although the police had removed him from the suspect list, there were still many people who suspected that he was the perpetrator over the years. Therefore, he had to endure a lot of fatigue. The police then went to the area where Jaycee had been held before. The scene shocked the police. The conditions there were terrible. The backyard had 2 temporary sheds surrounded by a lot of garbage and discarded items. Next to it was a gray car, the car that Philip had used to take her away. The room where Jaycee stayed was in very poor condition. It was unbelievable that she had spent 18 years in such an environment, alone taking care of her 2 daughters. Immediately afterwards, Philip was charged with 29 crimes. At first, he did not plead guilty, but faced with the evidence obtained, he also admitted to the crimes. On June 2, 2011, according to state law, Philip was sentenced to 431 years in prison. Nancy was sentenced to 36 years in prison. However, the case was still not settled because there were many people who indirectly caused the above tragedy. Philip was a person with a criminal record. After being paroled, he had to be under government supervision. According to official records, after a period of time, the parole department would send someone to inspect Philip's house. Since Jaycee was abducted, investigators had entered Philip's house 60 times, but they did not see any strange traces in the backyard. In addition, the police did not list him as a suspect because his house was only a 2-hour drive from Jaycee's house. Moreover, in 1976, he had committed a crime against a girl near South Lake Tahoe, where Jaycee lived. The police had overlooked too many clues. In 2002, the fire department received a call reporting that a child in Philip's family had been injured while swimming. Philip did not have children. The fire department did not report the news to the parole department, and no one investigated who the child was. In 2006, Philip's neighbors also called the police to say that they saw children living in the backyard of his house. An officer later came to meet Philip and talked for 30 minutes. However, the backyard was still not searched. It can be said that this was also partly irresponsible and negligent on the part of the police and government agencies. Jaycee had lived in hell for 18 years for the above reason. In July 2010, the California government decided to compensate Jaycee $20 million for their negligence. The sheriff of the local police department also issued a public statement expressing an apology to Jaycee. Jaycee's family later also sued the U.S. government, arguing that Philip had been drinking alcohol and using contraband while on parole. This was a violation of parole and should have revoked his parole and returned him to prison. If the government had enforced it strictly, Jaycee would not have been abducted, but the lawsuit was rejected by the U.S. court. In 2010, Jaycee established the Jaycee Foundation to serve families like hers who've experienced severe psychological trauma. In July 2011, Jaycee published a memoir based on her own experiences. It is sad and touching to read what 18 years of long imprisonment meant for an 11-year-old girl. The long-term control and brainwashing made Jaycee unable to trust outsiders and not dare to easily reveal her true identity. After returning to her family, Jaycee went through a difficult period, but with the help and good treatment of her family, she quickly stepped out of the darkness and lived happily with her family. In July 2016, Jaycee published her second book, Freedom, My Book of Firsts. In this book, Jaycee mainly talks about her life after being rescued and how she recovered and reintegrated into the world. She hopes that through this book can help some survivors who have gone through similar experiences. To this day, I still believe that each of us holds the key to our own happiness. Try to hold on to it as much as possible. Today's video ends here, and I'll see you in the next videos. Goodbye.